In today's video, we're going to talk about 3 pieces of photography advice that don't get mentioned that much, even though they should. Let me begin with a quick story. About a year or so ago, I was shooting a sunrise in Richmond Park. Now, for those of you who don't know what Richmond Park is, it's a huge park with wildlife situated in South London. It really is incredible, and I definitely recommend it to anyone who's visiting London. Every single weather app was screaming fog followed by sun. So I arrived very excited, very enthusiastic, and just looking forward to what types of photos that I could get. However, I was met with nothing but disappointment because I arrived to a boring grey mess. I walked up and down the park for ages trying to find something, but no, the light was dull, I was tired, and frankly I was getting quite fed up as well. So I packed all my stuff away, was about to go back to the car and back to my warm, comfortable bed, and then I thought to myself, no, I'm here. Let's just stay here, give it another 30 minutes, and then if it doesn't work out, then at least I know I've tried, and there will be no regrets later on. So I got the camera back out of my bag and then headed into a part of the park that I know has deer and can get fog, specifically the lakes right in the middle of the park. Well, lo and behold, the clouds actually started to lift and to part, and I even saw a bit of sun coming through, which definitely filled me with hope. Even better than that, I started to see a bit of a haze forming as the clouds were lifting. So overall, it was definitely looking a lot more promising. As I got to the spot where I wanted to shoot, the clouds at that point pretty much lifted. There was a really nice fog in the atmosphere, and there's beautiful golden light just bathing the entire scene. At that point, I was definitely happy that I stayed behind. So I found like a really nice minimalist shot with a tree and the sun, and as I got my 50-140 on the camera, about to take a photo, no joke, this deer just came out of absolutely nowhere. I was the only one there. The deer looked straight at me, and I got what, in my opinion, is one of my favorite and one of my best photos I think I've ever taken. As a matter of fact, that was one of the most popular photos at my London photography gallery in Nuremberg in Bavaria last summer. And honestly, throughout the rest of the morning, I just kept getting better and better light and walking away with just a collection of really nice images that to this day I cherish, and they remind me not to give up and to just stay there and keep going. Now you could say, well, that was just luck, because you could have easily stayed there for another 30 minutes, nothing would have happened, and you would have probably just wasted another 30 minutes and walked home even more annoyed. Well, I'll have to politely disagree with that, because A, you know you would have given it 100%. Because if you say to yourself, extra 30 minutes, you stay there, nothing happens, you walk away comfortable knowing that you gave it your all. And another thing, luck does play a huge part in it. And the more you're out there, the luckier that you will get. We're out taking photos, and as the day draws to a close, we feel satisfied with what we have, the camera goes in the bag and we begin to make our way home. However, as we're walking back, or maybe on the tube or on the bus, we spot an amazing shot, but the camera is away, and all we can do is sit there and watch it go by helplessly. Honestly, so many times I ended up with fantastic photos, even some of my favorite photos, not whilst I was out shooting in a particular place, but on my way to and from that particular place. Not only that, but having your camera out and with you as you're commuting gives you a chance to document the beginning and the end of your day. So if you're, let's say, doing a Instagram story, rather than just having your photos from, let's say, London Bridge or wherever you are, you also have a nice shot of you on the train heading in, or maybe a nice shot of you on the bus heading back, or whatever it is. It's just a way to kind of document your day and have a definitive start and an end. So the main takeaway here is don't put your camera away when you've done with the day's shoot. Leave it out with you, because you never know what you might see on your way home. At this point, I'll say a quick thank you to today's video sponsor, which is myself. So those of you who've been following me for a while, you would know that I make digital photography zines. There are 2 types of zines. The first one covers the entire year, and the second one covers a particular location where I've spent a considerable amount of time, such as Porto and Istanbul. as well as sharing behind the scenes information, what camera gear I've used. The zines also provide you with tourist information for those particular locations. Like the Porto zine will tell you what cafes to go to, will tell you what the best areas to shoot, will tell you what the best lens to use in the particular location. And generally my goal with these zines is to not only provide you some inspiration, but also have some meaningful, useful information for when you're planning your trips. So I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who's purchased the zine. And if you're interested, I've linked them all down below. Thank you again ever so much. And let's get back to the video. In a recent video, I was talking about how photography can be compared to your muscles. So what I mean by that is the more you use your muscles, the bigger they get, the stronger you get. When you leave them and you don't use them, then they kind of dwindle away, become smaller, and you become weaker. Well, photography, in my opinion, is the same. It's a memory muscle skill, so to speak, that needs constant repetition and needs constant exercise in order for that skill to develop and to improve. And the only real way to do that, aside from learning more about photography, is to set a set amount of time aside to be outside with your camera, practicing street photography, travel photography, landscape photography, whatever genre you prefer. However, another thing that we can also agree on is that life happens, things get in the way, and what initially started as shooting 3 times a week, now shooting once every 3 weeks, if you're lucky. So my advice here is to keep your camera within constant reach and constant eyesight. So keep it somewhere where you will see it all the time. Maybe it's in your living room, maybe it's in your office, maybe it's in your car. The idea behind it is, you know, with eating, with food, right? If you leave, let's say, junk food around your house, you end up eating it because you just can't help yourself. Whereas if you take all that junk food, put it in the bin and replace it with fruit, with veg, with whole foods, and you leave that lying around the house, then you end up eating that because that's what your eyes see, and then you're like, oh, I'll have an apple rather than a chocolate bar, for example. Same thing with your camera, because now every time you'll see that camera, you think, you know what, I've got about 30 minutes. Rather than sitting here watching YouTube videos or Netflix or whatever, weather's quite nice outside, let me just quickly do a loop around the block. And that loop around the block might not yield any photos. It might yield 1 or 2, but it's the practice and it's that exercise that will keep your skill topped up. Equally, if you're commuting to and from your job, let's say in central London, have like a small pocketable camera that you just keep in your bag with you at all times, because one day you might finish earlier on a Friday, the weather's nice, and you think, you know what, I've got about an hour to kill, let me just walk from my office to my tube station rather than getting a bus or something else. And then you'll get your camera out and you might get 1 or 2 good pictures along the way. So the point of this point is that always keep your camera within reach and within sight. Anyway, that's all for this video. I just want to finish with a huge thank you for your continued support. Grab your camera, go out, take some photos, because that's exactly what I'm going to do after this. Thank you for watching, have a good one, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.